Okay, awesome. So we're going to get going. This evening, I'm very proud and excited to have Sibongakonke Mcobothi on this evening. She matriculated in 2022 from Inanda Seminary, and she was on our further studies maths program. I had the privilege of teaching her in her grade 12 year in further studies maths. And I remember fondly seeing this young girl from Inanda Seminary arriving at Westville Boys High School every week, often lifted by her head of academics at Inanda Seminary, and sitting quietly and diligently in the back and getting on with her work. And today she is second year at the University of Cape Town, pursuing a Bachelor of Business Science in Actuarial Science. Like I said, she's a past student of Advantage Learn and graduated from further studies programs with us in 2022. Sibongakonke attended school at Inanda Seminary, graduating as the Dux and receiving the prestigious ZENEX Award for her outstanding contributions to the school community. During her high school, she was among the first to enroll in further studies mathematics and to go on to study towards a further studies mathematics extended certificate, with her elective being statistics. And her journey in this subject sparked an interest in many other learners around her to pursue the same. So welcome to you all on the Further Studies Guidance webinar this evening. This is for you to understand the influence that further studies has had on Sibongakonke, to understand a bit more about actuarial science, and essentially to get as much information as you possibly can to help you in your journey in further studies or prospective journey towards tertiary study and your future careers. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Sibonga to take us through her presentation. Over to you.
My name is Sibongakonke Mcobothi, and I'm currently studying, as Crispian mentioned, Actuarial Science at the University of Cape Town, and it is my second year. And I'm here to tell you guys about how you can basically use further studies to help propel your academic journey, which is what I also basically did. So it's actually found that there's a big gap between high school and university. And by big gap, I'm talking about the fact that this is a crucial phase of how you can move from high school to university. And it's actually a big step when you have to move from high school to university. And this isn't just a shift in your location, but it's also a significant step in how you can approach your learning, manage your time, and basically take responsibility for your education. For me, transitioning from high school to university was particularly scary because I found that for our first test in maths, there was a test called the decant test. And it's even spooky in the name because the word decant, because you have to write a test where you have to score above 50% in order for you to finish or move to the second year and finish your degree in record time. For this decant test, if you basically score below 50, then they basically add an additional year to your degree, meaning that you do mathematics for your first year and your second year. So I also found that really scary. And I was like, oh, what the heck? What is a decant test? And then they then also told us how we could navigate passing the decant test, but then I found it to be quite helpful in the sense that I did further studies and I was able to see that there was a bit of content that was covered in the decant test that I had covered in high school. And I was able to pass that test and basically move on to doing maths for just 1 year for my first year. So the big gap not only talks about just moving location, it also talks about your academic expectations, the depth of the content that you cover in university, your time management, which basically contributes a large proportion of basically the big gap. So I found that with academic expectations, I actually always expected to get 80 or above for most of my courses. And I found that I experienced something called as the imposter syndrome, where I was like, how can I get a 60 for this test, whereas I'm usually getting 80s and 90s? So then it's like, what was going on? And then I found that the academic expectations from high school and university actually change, because you won't always get that 80 or 90, because then you're exposed to a lot of your environment is completely different, and you basically now have to work through the content yourself. You don't actually have guided assistance from your educators. Now it's more of application, and you have to navigate that yourself, and it's not going to be the same as it was for high school. Also found that depth of the content was also there was a gap in that, in the sense that in university you basically expected to understand the why, like the application. As much as high school provides you with the computation of things, the sense that this is a formula, you apply this formula, and then once you work through this formula, you're able to answer your questions and you're able to get those marks. In university, you ask questions in depth, in the sense that you need to understand why this particular formula works or why this theorem works, which is why now we say that the content for university goes to a deeper level and is not just about computation, which also found was a significant shift in that aspect. But also, there's also a gap in time management, the sense that you require a lot of self-discipline in order for you to stay up to date with your assignments, your lectures, and all of that. Whereas in high school, you're just given a timetable, and they'll say, okay, at 8, you go to maths, at 9, you go to this, and then at maybe 6, you then attend further studies, and then at 3, have sports. In university, you basically now have to sit down and think when you're going to do things at a particular time. I found that further studies was able to bridge the gap, not it for my academic expectations, the content, and time management, in the sense that I was able to see that sometimes the mark that you set out to get isn't always going to be the mark that you will get. And you have to look at those expectations and understand the reasoning behind how you can get to those marks and why you weren't able to at that particular time. And also found that depth of the content, in the sense that if the educators for further studies gave me work, I was able to see understand the visual aspect of why we actually differentiate, or why we actually this function moves from looking like this to looking like that. And I was able to now see or visually understand the computation, and also sit down and think why we're doing what we're actually doing, which was really helpful in university, because I was like, okay, I understand the computation. Now it's time to understand the application, which is then now a build of the theorems and the proofs, which are actually done in mathematics or in statistics. With time management, I found that most of the time I had to decide whether I had to go play with my friends, or actually sit down and do further studies, or actually go to S4 Boys and do further studies instead of staying behind and having some fun or sitting with my friends. Now I actually built that element of self-discipline, in the sense that I had to learn how to manage my time to go to this class and understand the work. So I also found that it was really helpful, in the sense that I could balance my time and see how I could actually now apply myself, how I could actually now use the time or manage time myself, basically, instead of being given a timetable. Because when at university, you don't have your parents will tell you, go do your homework, or just sit down, or do your work. You find that now you have to decide for yourself whether you're sitting down or you not, which is what I found particularly helpful with further studies, is that I had to decide that, okay, I'm going to review the work at this time, and I'm basically going to understand during this time or practice at this time. So it helps you basically be more self-disciplined in that aspect. So also wanted to move on to explaining the differences, or give a preview and a comparison of the content studied in high school and the content studied in further studies and content studied in basically your first year for maths and stats. I found that there was a huge similarity in basically further studies and your introductory mathematics and stats in your first year. Because most of the time I found that if I'd sit and study integration, I already knew the computations because we did integration in further studies for final year, or differentiation. And for stats, we had already covered the central limit theorem, your confidence intervals, and your hypothesis testing. Now, some of the concepts might basically sound kind of like foreign, or you don't understand the particular concept, but most of the concepts that I studied in further studies were I actually did in my first year maths and stats courses. And most of the courses in high school were basically, I didn't actually see that correlation or that link, but they were there, but not as much as the concept studied in further studies. Yeah, so that's. So also like to give you guys how you can actually balance further studies and high school, especially if you're prospective students wanting to study further studies, and basically use that in order to propel your academic journey. The first thing I like to say is have fun. You have to learn how to live in the moment, and things can get kind of overwhelming, and you need to be able to know that it's not just about work, and you find that now you can just sit down and basically have fun and engage with your friends, because those are the moments that you are gonna remember. And the second point that I have is that you need to get into the rhythm of asking for help and of using the resources that you've been given. In class, most of the time you need to be able to teach yourself now to actually ask questions and engage with the content while you're still in class, rather than waiting for maybe the next lesson, because it will actually also help you in lectures and in university, where you basically get into the rhythm of asking for help, asking questions, and using resources that you've been given, or actually looking for more resources that could help you understand a particular concept, because that is what is required most of the time in university, because I need to be able to look for other resources or use the resources that you've been given to basically understand a particular concept. Also, you need to review, practice. As much as the time is constrained and you can't find it in your schedule to basically fit that in, maybe you could see that during the weekend you could have free time to actually review the work that you covered during the weekend for the studies. And you see that, okay, this time I could actually practice and review the work, and ask, maybe write down my questions that I really want to ask regarding a specific topic. So it's a key element of reviewing, is basically a key element of your learning. It's not just you're going to receive, you also have to engage with the content that you actually exposed to. And the fourth point is that you need to use this as an opportunity to master your time management skills. Because now your schedule, you have to decide what works or what fits in your schedule. So by that, it's actually like a preparation that will help you in university, in the sense that you know that this time you sit down, you've gained some self-discipline, in the sense that you're able to manage your time and you're able to work around that. So you need to be able to use further studies and high school as an opportunity to actually manage your time and build on your time management skills. And then I also have a few perspectives from my friends that are in their respective degrees. They're basically out of high school. And the first friend that I have here is Lerato. She's studying analytics with me here at the University of Cape Town. And she had noticed that with regards to the concept, she struggled with understanding the concepts between mathematics, in mathematics, as a result of the difficulty offered in high school and university. And she found that most of the people that she would ask for help were people that actually did AP Maths, or basically further studies Maths in high school. And if she had had the opportunity, I think she then would have done further studies. And then one of my other friends, she also did AP Physics. We were in the same, basically we'd study or AP Physics or further studies together, because we understood what was basically going on, as we had a added level to our basic schedule for high school. And she's basically now doing biological sciences, and she found that AP Physics has caused a tremendous impact in her studies for basically her first year physics module. And it found that it offloaded a ton of pressure in the present, especially with regards to the transition from high school to university. And then I also have Yoli Iswa, who's doing her first year, studying engineering. And one major thing she found is that across all the engineering disciplines, further studies was really helpful, because most of the students studying engineering, whether it be mechanical, electrical, civil, they basically have a common first year, especially with their courses. She found that she also did AP in high school, and she found that it's currently helping her tremendously with her first year syllabus. And yeah, she's basically enjoying how she's able to apply what she had learned in maths, especially your integration and your approximation, to her other courses such as applied physics. And she's also doing the courses again now, but like most of the courses for maths and stats, and she's able to apply, or she understands the computation, and she was also exposed to a higher level of critical thinking by doing further studies. So it basically helped put her mind to think in a more expansive manner. And then I have the last perspective from Zotile Hlangu, who's basically studying a BCom in stats and data science at the University of Pretoria. She felt that if she had done AP, she thinks that it would have helped her or made the transition a lot easier, because she found that with the background offered by Maths Core, it didn't really help as much as she thinks further studies would have helped her. So then that's it from me. And so I'd like to panel to any questions.
So helpful to hear your perspective on things and get insight into your journey from high school to university into actuarial science. And yeah, so useful that you got so many perspectives from your friends at various universities and various degrees, and see their thoughts around their experience at a university level. So thank you. That is really so valuable. So now an opportunity to ask Sibonga any questions that you might have, and to pick her brain to assist you in your journey. So I see we already have one question, which I'm going to raise to you now, Sibonga. It is from, let me just check something here. It is from Pitsi Malaiki. He asking, hi, I actually want to do actuarial science. My question is, does doing AP Maths give you advantage, or does it depend on the university? Because most people I've asked from universities don't understand what AP Maths is. So what is your experience on that?
I found that for the University of Cape Town, AP Maths was really, really helpful because, yeah, I was able to make it through my first year maths without having to do it across 2 years. And I think for VETS and other universities, it's kind of similar, but I feel like doing further studies gives you an upper hand in maths and statistics as compared to not doing it, because you have a lot on your plate, especially if you're going to do actuarial science. Just offloading the pressure by doing further studies, maths and stats is basically, it helps you tremendously, which is basically what I did. But you do have people that didn't do AP, but I found that it offloaded a tremendous amount of pressure because I didn't have to feel kind of scared or in basically engaging or answering questions in maths. So I was basically like, oh, okay, I've done this before. And there was that sense of familiarity, which built my confidence in actually doing well in those courses.
That's a great view. Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned the Deacon test, which I'm not that familiar with, but it seems like a very high stakes assessment. You know, if you don't pass it, it extends the degree programming essentially. Is what you're saying, and you managed to pass it first time, and you're on track to complete your degree in minimum time, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question, Pitsi. Thank you for that. Just to weave a bit of my perspective on that question in as well. And what you will find with further studies maths, previously known as AP Maths or the further studies programs, is that they don't form part of formal admissions requirements at universities. So they're not going to count towards your APS score or in terms of being admitted into the degree program. That really hinges on your national senior certificate, the subjects in your national senior certificate, and then at UCT, significantly, your national benchmark test score, because that's a required by all undergraduate, all applicants to undergraduate studies. But where from what we've heard, where further studies assists, and Sibonga is validating that, is that it helps you immensely with the transition and then to be successful within the degree program. Back when I was at universities, I did engineering. I did what was ad maths at the time. It was ad maths, then it was AP maths, then it was further studies maths. And I remembered how immensely it helped me in my engineering degree, and to cope with the sheer load of workload and that I encountered at university, which I know actuarial science is one of the most demanding programs. So I imagine you're in lectures from 8 to 5 every day. And and so that is my understanding as well, is it just really helps you with that transition. Maybe as a follow-up, there's another question, but I'll get to it in a moment. As a follow-on, did you find that further studies maths or the effects of it influenced opening doors to scholarships for you, or bursaries, or any other opportunities? Did you find any influence in that regard?
Yes, I did, because for bursaries or scholarships, when you apply, you basically have to attach motivational letters, and they also want to see your academic results. So I found that when I was applying, I used to also say that because they want you to see you do extramural activities or anything other than just your routine schedule in high school. And every time I put AP Maths, that I'm doing AP Maths after hours, or one as part of those extramural activities. And I found that it was really helpful in that sense, because bursaries also consider, or they have to consider what the chances for that student is when they have to fund you, in the sense that they have to consider whether you make it for your first year and you won't have to have an extra year. So they need to consider that into probably, like, take it into account and see whether the student basically has a higher chance of making it for her first year, because she's done maybe AP Maths. So I found that I also have or got a scholarship also because of that, and they love to see that that student has a higher probability or higher chance of not encountering any problems in their first year.
Amazing. So you did get a scholarship. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Was that one of the UCT scholarships, or did you get it through an organization or a company?
Organization.
Okay.
Yes.
Which scholarship, if I may ask, did you manage to secure?
It was First Rand Foundation.
Wow, incredible. Congratulations. That is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I was fortunate to a SASL scholarship when I went and studied engineering, and I just know how much that helped me in my journey. It was, I mean, they covered all my fees, they covered my residence fees, my textbook fees, and it helped me and my family immensely. And I imagine the First Rand scholarship is somewhat similar.
Yes.
That's brilliant. Okay. Nkosana, thank you for your question. There's another question. From my understanding, there are many types of actuaries. Which type of actuary would you recommend considering? Which type of actuary would you recommend considering the changes in the business climate that might occur in the future? Hard question.
Yes, difficult question. Okay, well, actuarial science. I wanted to be a health actuary when I basically have moved from high school to university. But given the current economic situations, or what is being said about health, and how they're moving to basically more basically trying to explain the simpler term, but like with government, instead of having now private medical insurance and all of that, I basically have shifted from wanting to be a health actuary to wanting to work with in corporate, basically with your investments and all of that, which is kind of similar to what you encounter as a quant. But with I think your question is really vital in the sense that you are considering the economic conditions, and you want to see which what type of actuary you basically be suited or as. And you will find that when you're doing your fourth year or third year and you're exposed to more actuarial work, that's when you actually find which actuary or what type of actuary you want to become. And for me, I'm also kind of looking or navigating the economic conditions, and I'm trying to see what I like. And yeah, so I think that with that question, it's more of a question that you'll be able to answer once you do actuarial work and you basically taught how the economic conditions actually influence that demand for that type of actuarial career.
Okay, that's fascinating. Thank you for that insight. But a follow-on, a good question, Kosana, is Sibonga, when you enter into the degree program towards becoming an actuary, in the initial years, do you have to make any specialization choices in your first and second year, or does it only come later when you've got a lot more context on what actuarial science is all about?
Okay, so the specialization comes later, like in your third year or fourth year. Yeah,
Okay.
that's when the specialization comes, and when you actually now doing particular courses like contingency, where you're looking at life insurance, that type of actuary, or you actually now have to look at investments, which looks at the quant aspects. Yeah, so it's a really broad field, and you're only exposed to the different types when you actually do the actual courses in your third and fourth year, which is basically your honors year for fourth. Yes, but first year is basically you just trying to meet the minimum requirements to make it into your second year or third year. So there's not really specialization. You guys are doing the same courses.
Okay, that's very helpful. And so, because then at least in Kosana, you don't have to worry that you need to answer these questions right now. If you have a general idea that this is the direction you want to go in, that level of detail will come with your as you progress through the degree, which is helpful. Also fascinating to hear that I imagine what you're talking about was the decision around the NHI that is coming and how that's impacting your decision-making process on potentially what direction you're going to take in your journey towards becoming an actuary. So that is a fascinating perspective. Thank you. Brilliant. Are there any other questions for Sibonga? I also noticed, Sibonga, Roxy Lewis is on this evening. She would have taught you statistics, right?
Yeah, yes, she did.
So she's on. I'm sure she's thrilled to see you again. Welcome, Rox. Okay. So, thank you, Sibonga. That was really fantastic to hear from you, and fantastic for our learners to get a very relatable perspective from someone who's just gone through high school and is in the throes of studying at university, and how it's going for you, and how your decisions at a high school level have impacted your trajectory. It's so fantastic to see how well you are doing. Yeah, we are backing you all the way, and we hope to keep in touch as your journey progresses. I see that there is a question from Ntando. Where is that? Have I missed it? Ntando, would you like to ask a question? I don't see one. Oh, she's coming. All right. Okay. There we go. Ntando says, Mr. The Owl says hello and hopes you're doing well.
Hello.
That's the academic head at Inanda.
Yes.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay, everyone. You're welcome to ask any further questions. We're going to be on for a bit longer. The next part of the presentation is to give people who don't know much about further studies a bit more detail on what further studies is. So what are further studies? Essentially, it is an IEB certificate that learners study towards at a grade 12 level, and it's an additional qualification. Okay, the IEB have certified this separately and got it internationally benchmarked at a UKA level. So learners that study towards the final further studies exams in matric, if they pass that exam with over 50%, they essentially achieve a further qualification. And it takes concepts to an advanced level, essentially at a university, takes concepts to a university level. So you study them, you are studying them very much ahead of time. And the beauty about it is that it extends you, it pushes you, but also the National Senior Certificate with your matric certificate in combination with the Further Studies Certificate really does present a globally relevant combination of qualifications, because that Further Studies Certificate has been internationally benchmarked at a UKA level, which is the highest exit level certificate that learners can achieve in the British educational system. Okay, the programs that you can take in further studies span from further studies maths to further studies physics and further studies English. There is a further studies Afrikaans program, but at Advantage Learn we don't run a further studies Afrikaans program. These are the 3 further studies programs that you can study with us towards. Okay, and to reiterate exactly what Sibonga was saying, is that the growth mindset and the grit that is developed through these further studies programs is far more important than the marks that you achieve. And that is our philosophy at Advantage Learn and our philosophy towards the further studies programs. The value is in the challenge and extension that these programs bring forward to learners. And by virtue of that challenge and extension, learners learn such important skills that serve them at school and beyond school really significantly. So Sibonga has given you many reasons on why to study further studies. These are some of the core reasons from our side. It improves your core subject results immensely because you study these subjects to a greater level of depth, and it has a natural positive impact on the corresponding core subject. So if you're studying further studies maths, what you'll find is that your core maths will improve quite markedly. Not because further studies is revising your core maths, but because further studies maths is teaching you beyond the core maths syllabus. And so by virtue of that extension, it improves your core maths skills because they are fundamental to or foundational to what you're learning at a further studies level. If you're doing further studies physics, you'll find that has a very positive impact on your physical science marks. If you're doing further studies English, which is a literature-based program, you'll find that it'll have a very positive impact on your home language subject. It does help in your university applications. While it's not part of the formal admissions requirements, when you submit your university applications, they are interested in what other things you have done at a high school level. And so these additional programs that you take on do serve to bolster your academic profile and your application. The reality is that in a university context is that the number of learners that meet the minimum admissions requirements for the various degree programs at the various universities far outnumbers the number of places that are available for study. I heard from the UCT admissions manager just last week that, or it might have been the Wits admissions manager, I can't quite recall, but last year they had 145,000 undergraduate applications, and they only had 6,000 places for learners in the first year across all the faculties and degrees. So the number of learners that actually are eligible for admission based on minimum admissions requirements far outweigh the number of places. And so what ends up happening is that it's really competitive, and the admissions teams have to look at a lot of additional information to make the best admissions decisions. And like Sibonga mentioned, what they're wanting to do is provide fair access to university, while at the same time admitting learners that have the highest probability of succeeding in the various degree programs. Because what is the function of a university? To further the body of knowledge through research, but also to provide skills into the economy. So whoever they admit into the degree program, they want to have a good sense that learner is going to succeed and see it through and graduate in the 4 years. And the admissions teams know the further studies programs. They know how demanding they are. They know that a learner that can pass a further studies maths or further studies physics or further studies English is a learner that has the aptitude and the work ethic to succeed in the tertiary context. So it definitely does assist in university applications in terms of rounding off your application. In some years, further studies has previously been counted towards APS scores at specific universities. At the moment, I don't believe it is anywhere in South Africa. Learners are less likely to struggle at university if they have taken the studies programs, and that there's two kind of profiles that are important to reflect on in that regard. Some of you in the room might fit the one profile, some of you might fit the other profile. The one is exceptionally high aptitude learner at school. Somebody who's been gifted with a brilliant mind. They pick up concepts quickly. They're able to apply what they've learned very, very quickly. But by virtue of that fact, they don't actually have to work very hard at school. Their normal core subjects aren't that challenging to them. And as a result, they don't ever have to learn the skills of discipline, diligence, time management, all of those things, because they're gifted with such a brilliant mind that they can just study the night before the test and still do well. They can not do the homework and still do well. And while at a school level, it's really nice because it's, you don't have to worry too much and you can do more of the fun things. Unfortunately, often what the byproduct of that is that those learners don't develop critical skills that they are undoubtedly going to need beyond high school. Time management, diligence, a strong work ethic. And so inevitably those learners, if they don't learn those things, they are tripped up later down the line when they are presented with a significant challenge. And that's a real problem and a real deficit in their development. So the further studies programs to very high aptitude learners presents that important challenge to them that forces them to develop those skills, which is really, really important. The other profile of learner is your mid-aptitude learner. Got a good mind, doesn't necessarily pick things up that quickly, has to work a bit harder at things to do well, but by virtue of having a strong work ethic, they do exceptionally well at school. So they're not lacking anything on the work ethic front, but when they move to university, the rate of learning picks up so substantially, and that is something that is very difficult for them to deal with initially, because they have to pick up concepts a lot faster than what they're used to. And so the further studies programs give a really solid foundation to manage that change when we move into the tertiary context. And then, like I've said previously, the further studies certificates have been benchmarked internationally, and so they are recognized by many international institutions. And so if the prospect of studying overseas might be something that you want to keep open to you, then these are very valuable certificates in that regard as well. Okay, so who should consider doing the further studies programs? Learners with a strong core subject competency, learners who want to prepare themselves for tertiary studies, learners who are looking to enter competitive degree programs and need to differentiate their applications, or learners who are looking to study overseas. The further studies learning streams available at Advantage Learn are our guided online learning stream or our live online learning stream. We only have one in-person class, and that's in further studies maths in Westfall, where Sibonga learned with us. But we have live online classes every week, and we have guided online classes which are running throughout the year as well. The difference is that the guided online program, learners are prescribed work weekly, which consists of studio-produced video lessons that they need to work through during the week. The beauty of that stream is that learners can complete lessons at a time which suits them, pause, rewatch, rewind, and all of our programs include the textbooks required for the program. The live online lesson stream is where you join one of our expert educators live online in the Zoom classroom, which is how we hold our live online lessons, and those are set essentially at a set day and a set time weekly. The live online lesson stream is the only lesson stream available for further studies. Okay. Over and above that, our learners are really well supported with a program coordinator who ensures that learners and parents and schools are in the know on what's going on, schedules, and can assist with any coordination type queries. We have a wealth of resources on our campus, technical support should learners run into any issues on the online platform. Learners are enrolled into a dedicated further studies WhatsApp group where they are able to chat between members of their class, their coordinators on their group, and their educators on their group, so that they can ask administrative related questions to their coordinator, but they can also ask content related questions to their educator and to their peers to assist them as they learn. And the other significant thing on our program is that learners get access to our powerful resource libraries, where there are video lessons on a per topic basis that span the various grades of the program, so learners can go back and watch a topic again, or even go forward into a subsequent grade if they want to move ahead of the speed at which the program is going. Okay, so if you are considering applying towards the further studies programs, you simply go to advantagelearn.com, navigate towards the further studies subjects, choose which further studies program you're interested in applying towards, and go and fill out the application form. Our admissions team will then get in touch with you after submitting the application.